moving inexorably closer to that magic moment we call Christmas. Hi and welcome. This is Nightsounds. I'm Bill Pearce. And usually a couple days prior to December 25th, we take the opportunity to just settle on the Christmas story, some of the little-known facts about the history of what we call Christmas morning. I'm Bill Pearce, and I think perhaps the best part of Christmas as we know it today in this country is the heritage of music, both traditional, sometimes contemporary, and the birth of Jesus gives all sorts of possibilities of musical definition. One of the questions I face, and perhaps you do too, or if you've thought about it at all, is that Christmas in the Holy Land is much like it is today weather-wise. And if those shepherds were out on the fields taking care of their flock and making sure that things were as they should be that very special night, they would have probably had to have snowshoes and parka jackets and a nice warm fire. That's one of the inequities of what we may call Christmas, because nowhere in the Bible are we told to observe the birthday of Jesus. Well, here we are tonight, once again, concerning ourselves with a Christmas story. The fact that he was born is absolutely incredible, and born in the environment in which he found himself. Tonight's program is Chapter 1 in the Nightsounds Christmas. Some Nightsounds listeners, professional singers, going under the name Voice Trick, are singing, humming their way through a beautiful song perhaps you haven't heard for years. But if you followed the big bands of the 40s, you'll remember that this was the theme song of one of them, Claude Thornhill, and it's entitled Snowfall. Beautiful melody. Let's just bask in it now for a moment. music we just heard by some Nightsounds listeners, professional singing group going under the name Voice Track. Beautiful tune entitled Snowfall. Well, this song in the background is no stranger to any of us. Away in a Manger. Editor Marvin Moore, editor of the magazine Signs of the Times, was mentioning sometime back, it's not the birthday of Christ, December 25th. The weather, as we mentioned, would have been too cold at that time for tending sheep in the out of doors. And the fact that shepherds were watching their flocks in the fields at that time certainly would suggest that Christ's birth occurred sometime in late spring, summer, or early fall. So once again, no one knows the date for Christ's birth. Secondly, there is no biblical command to celebrate the birth of Jesus. And third, actually some of the roots of Christmas do go back to paganism. I understand that in ancient times, several harvest celebrations and festivals for pagan deities occurred from mid to late December, including the festive honor of the Roman god Saturn. Early Christians chose this time of the year to celebrate Christ's birth. So tonight, there are lots of details that we take for granted that may not have been the fact, such as the time of Christ's birth, and as we mentioned, authorizing a special day to be remembered. It's not scriptural. But it is an event worth celebrating, and that's what we do tonight. And we rejoice that he was born. Why not celebrate this joy with special programs, with food, and with gifts? Now that's another angle. Gifts were not exchanged with each other in that manger. They were given to Jesus. And we can do with that what we will, as far as observance. What about the fact that there's no biblical command to celebrate Christ's birth? Now, again, this doesn't mean that it's wrong to celebrate his birth, but neither is a biblical prohibition against the celebration. And where there's no command in the Bible, either way, we really are free to remember Christ's birth in a special way, whatever it might be. Paying attention to his birth, to his person, to what he came to do. And what about the fact that Christmas has roots in paganism? We really have to take the paganism out of Christian hearts by refusing to celebrate Christ's birth on December 25th. Is that a question that's worth thinking about? Marvin Moore said, if our modern celebration of Christmas included the worship of pagan deities, then we would indeed see a problem. However, it doesn't. And while Christmas in our day has become as much a secular holiday as a religious one, the only spiritual aspect in anyone's mind is the birth of Christ. And really, we don't see many Christmas decorations featuring pagan gods or goddesses, or hear Christmas music about pagan worship. The major problem, it would seem, with Christmas in our day isn't paganism, but materialism. It's so easy to share gifts with each other. So, when is the last time any of us have given Jesus a gift on Christmas Day? Well, I don't know about you, but that gives the possibility of some innovation. Remembering that God looks on the heart, not on the outward appearance. Not even in that real neat way that we decorated the Christmas tree. And I would imagine some would wonder how we can give a gift to Jesus when he can't see him. One way to give a gift to Jesus is to give money to a church or charity, a ministry of your choice. Another way is to help a needy person directly, whether or not we get credit on the tax forms. Visiting those in need in their homes, inviting them to ours. People in need are not always poverty-stricken. Some of the loneliest people on Christmas Day are singles. Why not invite one or more single people to your home or a special moment? So tonight we are taking advantage of Jesus' birth. Now, not in a negative way, but certainly honoring him scripturally as the fact that he did come and he did grow and he did mature, and the ministry he had was short but potent. If Christ were born today, where do you think he would have made his entrance? Well, if we follow the scriptural equation, he probably would have been born in some garage in a low-cost housing area. But wherever he was born, that is not so much of an issue as what are we going to do in our hearts, in our minds, in our lives, with and for this one who came to die for us. That is a big factor. Let's go back and consider the birth of Jesus once again, and the tough moments of that birth.
No room, only a manger of hay. No room, he is a stranger today. No room here in his world and away. No room, no room, no room here in the hearts of mankind. No room, no cheery welcome could find. No room, surely the world is blind. No room. Angels in heaven up yonder watch with amazement and wonder to see the Son of the highest treated so. No room, only a manger of hay. No room, he is a stranger today. No room here in his world and away. No room.
Ralph Carmichael Orchestra, taking over now with the music of Christmas instrumentally. I just had the opportunity of singing and playing through a song written many years ago by John W. Peterson with the title No Room. And that title could be placed as not only a statement but a question. Is there room in your heart beyond all of the materialistic sounds and sights and pressures we feel at this time of the year? The question is posed once more to us. What is our involvement with Jesus Christ? And really, we can't remain neutral to that question, because Jesus, in what he did, was not neutral toward us. We are very much involved. As we leave this world especially, and go into the next, what we have done in our hearts with and for Jesus Christ is the primary question of all time, one which we would do well, in fact, the better part of wisdom, if you're a thinking person, would be to find out as much about this man Jesus through the scriptures as we can. This is the Christmas edition of Nightsounds. I'm Bill Pearce. Thank you for joining me. We're speaking about some of the little-known facts relating to the history of Christ's birth. And as we pointed out, Christmas was never observed in the Bible by the apostles or the early church. Is Christ truly honored by customs that were once used to honor other gods? He can be. Notice what happened shortly after Moses led the children of Israel out of Egyptian bondage. The newly freed people demanded a golden calf to worship, presumably. As they had seen in Egypt, Aaron, Moses' brother, attempted to satisfy their religious desires. He should have known better. He reasoned that a compromise would resolve the situation. He would mingle what seemed to be harmless religious customs, like those of other nations, with the worship of Israel's God. And he would take it upon himself to set aside a day as a feast to the Lord. One of the more ignorant moves back in that day. And this compromise seemed to satisfy the people. But it certainly wasn't God's way, as we see in Exodus chapter 32. Later on, the Israelites were about to enter the promised land. And that land was inhabited by various peoples who worshipped other gods. And God gave Israel a stern warning. Do not, he declared, look at other nations and inquire after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? I will do likewise. You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way. Whatever I command you, be careful to observe it. You shall not add to it, nor take away from it. These words in Deuteronomy chapter 12. So really, the combination, a mixture of these kinds of practices with the worship of God was a recurring problem among the Israelites, and in a sense, indirectly, is a problem with us today. In fact, the Old Testament warns against such practices. And some wonder whether such scriptures apply to New Testament Christians. Take a look at 1 Corinthians chapter 10. I was in that this morning reading, and I noticed that these words were very pointed. Quote, now all these things happened to them, the Israelites, as examples, and they were written for our admonition. And the Apostle Paul wrote in the New Testament to the church, these factors, in a sense combining idolatrous practices with the worship of God, being a recurring problem which he had to deal with before these young churches. And St. Paul plainly instructed that there should not be mixing together of Christian and idolatrous practices. 2 Corinthians 6, let's read it. For what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness? And what communion has light with darkness? And what accord has Christ with Belial? And Jesus declared, quote, all too well, you reject the commandments of God, that you may keep your tradition, making the word of God of no effect. Mark chapter 7. So the result of this, Jesus said, was a vain worship. The words, quote, this people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. So it's up to us to determine just how we observe the birth of Jesus. And it would really suggest that we take cognizance of this, consciously dealing with it. The effulgent, beautiful music of Christmas. The composition Gloria, performed by the Oklahoma Baptist Festival Choir and the Singing Churchmen. Well, there's one we can certainly sing along with. One of the wonderful privileges we have on Nightsounds is to introduce new music sometime. Even in such a holiday season as Christmas, we think we've heard it all, but the birth of Jesus certainly suggests innovation and new birth and new ideas brought forth. Thank you so much tonight for sitting with me, as you may have done. Maybe some of you are in bed or on the highway, observing in the way that God has led you and your family, or you yourself and friends, to observe his birth. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. This is the wonder of the moment. And I believe tonight that we can conclude that we do respect and honor and love our Lord Jesus. And whether or not he was born on December 25th or July 3rd or whatever it might have been, the fact that he came and did what he did is the most glorious reason for celebrating his birth. In either way, whether we feel that this is Christmas or not, as far as the calendar is concerned, let's just give it all we have. And by that, it's sort of a colloquialism for saying, give him all that we are. That's the best gift that he would want. Our mailing address is Nightsounds, Wheaton, Illinois, 60189. May the God of all peace and joy be yours in your heart as you celebrate Christmas with the rest of us together to his glory. God bless you and good night.